The humans are dead? I seem to remember there was a song about that some time ago. Well, most humans are dead. In this game, there was a big catastrophe. Only a couple of humans are left out there in a polluted, contaminated environment. But we, the players, are benign aliens that are coming to help. We also can see the future partially, and that's where the title Precognition comes from. And there's a mechanic here, which is a fairly convoluted card drafting mechanic that simulates your limited ability to see the future. The game will last a number of rounds indicated by that track, which represents a river, and we basically, as aliens, are on barges that are traveling this river. We collect humans as we see them as they come in from the polluted wasteland. We also send them out to collect more resources and find more humans. So this river here also is the turn track, because we play our turn, and at the end of each turn we reveal a tile that will have an effect, and we move to that area. We play another turn, we reveal another tile, and so on and so forth. Early on, the effects are good. We collect stuff. As we move on the river, things become tougher. Monsters start attacking our barges. And also 3 times in the game, there's a tile that reminds us that we need to feed our healthy humans. So 1 grain per healthy humans. The contaminated humans are just there like, something like this, on the contaminated deck. And for some reason, they don't really need to eat. They're just being nourished by radioaction, I guess. Radioactivity. This is our barge. Each barge has 2 tiles like these, which will allow us to use specific effects and gain benefits if we powered up all the batteries in a specific section. You can play the game in the standard version, in which each player has exactly these 2 tiles, or you can use the other side of the tile, and the other side has unique effects and abilities, again, to be powered up with batteries. And if you're playing the advanced version, you give each player 3 tiles, and they choose the 2 that they want to keep. But I will show you the basic version here. Then we have a track to keep track of how much food we have here. Then we have an area where we place our contaminated humans. As we find them in the wasteland, or as we send them out, they go to the contaminated deck. We have a med bay that allows us to turn contaminated humans into healthy humans. So one human can be healed per doctor there. These green guys or gals is us, the benign aliens. And then we have an area with the healthy humans that can be spent as resources to perform missions, to collect resources, and they also basically are victory points. At the end of the game, our success is determined based on the number of healthy humans that we have. A track to keep track of the Banes, these monsters that in later turns show up and they will eat our humans, and we don't want that. And for that reason, we have an area where we will store our protectors. So when you acquire more aliens, you have to decide if you want to put them in Med Bay or if you want to put them here as defenders to fight against the Banes. And you can spend one of these to die heroically against the Banes, in which case you reduce your Bane level by 2 per protector that you sacrifice. Otherwise, each Bane that is there at the end of a turn will eat an equal number of humans. So 3 Banes, 3 humans, or bye-bye. The game, as I said, is card-driven, and there is it's a fairly convoluted mechanism of how cards are assigned to players on your right and on your left to simulate, again, our limited ability to see the future. To explain how it works, so let's establish that I'm playing as this alien here, Tal Priya, and this is my deck. The deck is shuffled in such a way that the 3 level cards are at the bottom, 2 level cards in the middle, and 1 level cards on top to give a little bit of structure here. Then Taldefitia is sitting on my left, and Talterius is sitting on my right. Next to my barge, I have two cards face up that have been given to me by the player on my left, the Deficia. That means that I've given two of my cards at the beginning of the game, I'm Talpria, to the player on my right. They're sitting there. Now, as the turn starts, you will draw two cards from your personal deck. Now you have four cards to take actions with, or to prepare actions with. Two are coming from my own deck, and two are here face up, and they are cards that have been given to me by the player on my left. Of these two cards, I will give one back to the player on my left. And here's a reminder, if I want to keep things secret, I'll take one and I place it under that one, that card there, to indicate that I'm now committed to give it back. And what does it mean? It means that the player on my right, Alterius, will give me back one of the cards that I gave them the previous turn. Remember, these are from my own deck. And so that's the limited future ability. I have 50% chances of getting a certain card. When I give these cards to Talterius, I know Talterius will give me one back. So I'll get to use one of these. And so I'm basically trying to guess which one will be given to me. And so I choose, again, one of these cards, and I give it back to the player on my left. And the player on my right gives me back one of mine, and I place it there because that's one of the two cards that I will get to use. I also get to choose one of the cards that I have available for myself, and that's indicated by that card as a reminder, and suppose that I place it there. The two remaining cards are given to the player on my right. They'll give me back one of them. And that's how it works. So basically, each turn, you give a card to the player on your left for them to use this round, and it's one that they gave you the previous round. You choose a card for yourself, you receive a card from the player on your right, you gave them those cards, and the two cards are given to the player on your right. So I know the next turn, one of the two cards I actually get to use for actions is going to be one of these. Convoluted? Yeah, you bet, you bet. But once you start playing it, it's convoluted. But not as much, but convoluted. Most importantly, is it worth it after we go through all the trouble so that basically you will have two cards that you will use for actions, and you will know, again, the two cards, one of which you will receive next turn. So now we get to activate the cards. What you see here at the bottom is the cost in healthy humans that I have to pay to activate those effects. I'm sending them out to do those things. If I want to activate both cards, then I need to spend the total indicated there. So I take that number of healthy humans and I turn it into contaminated humans. Now I can use the main action of both cards. You always get the advantages indicated on top. In this case, I'm activating both cards and I get 4 new humans, and they're coming from the wasteland, so I put them in my contaminated areas. If the two cards match in type, as you can see, these are both cards about humans, I also get the smaller advantages there. In this case, I get an alien, which I can place, remember, in the med bay or as a protector, and I also get 2 food. I started with 9, so now I go to 11. So I move that down. Trust me, I move that down right there. I don't cheat. And then I place this as a token here as a reminder. As you can see, Mad Bay and the decks can get crowded pretty soon, so you're gonna have tokens to indicate, to replace 5 meeples representing humans and 5 alien meeples representing, well, you guessed it, aliens. That's the general idea, really. If the two cards match in type, as I said, you get all of the advantages. Otherwise, suppose that these are the cards, when all is said and done, the 2 cards that I have available this turn, I will get to food and I will get to aliens if I spend the cost for both. I can also choose to actually get the advantages of only one of them, ignoring the cost. You see the question mark, it means that the cost is the same as that of the other card. In this case, I can basically get 2 humans or 2 food for free without paying any cost, because I can activate 1 card without cost, or 2 humans and 2 food by contaminating a total of 4 humans. Once we resolve our actions, our doctors will start healing contaminated humans. So you move a number of contaminated humans to the regular cabins, 1 contaminated per doctor. Again, later in the game, Banes will show up due to game effects that we find on the river, and that's when then I can remove my protectors to fight them. If I don't have protectors, then again a number of humans is removed, and I can choose to get them from the healthy side to the or from the contaminated side. So you see that complicated mechanism ultimately is just to determine how much food, humans, protectors, and possibly battery tokens you get. The battery tokens are assigned, you assign them to this section of your board that I showed you earlier. Once they are assigned, they cannot be moved, and their value is conditional. Say, for example, if I had this section powered up, then, and if the 2 cards that I had there available were an alien and another one, then I get an extra alien, say, like that. If I had an alien and a non-alien card, then I get that effect. However, remember, if I had an alien and another alien, then I would get those other bonuses also. As you can see, many of these effects are similar. If you have a card that will give you battery and a different one. If you have a card that will give you human and a different one. So these effects here, at least in the standard basic version, they basically act as consolation prizes. If you fail to make a match of those two cards, which is the best thing, you get something if you spend enough batteries to be able to activate the consolation prize. This is the general idea. The goal is to have as many healthy humans as possible at the end of the game. You can play competitive, in which case play with the most healthy humans wins the game, or you can play cooperatively, in which case there are just missions, there are just costs that you need to pay as the game progresses, and you need to be able to show that you can do that. If you fail to complete those objectives, you lose the game. Also remember, a couple of times during the game we gotta feed our humans. If you can't feed them by spending food, then you lose the unfed healthy humans. And this, in general, in essence, is how you play Precognition. When I read the rulebook, sure, I was scratching my head a little bit about the Precognition system, but I thought, well, that's a new approach to passing cards around, and who knows, once we grok it, maybe it'll pay off. That was my hope. So the part about it takes a minute to figure out how to implement the thing. It's true, especially when you read the rulebook. Once you start playing it, it makes more sense after a while, because people are physically there. 2 to you, 1 to you, and 1 for me. The problem is that once we learned that and we started using it strategically, it didn't feel very rewarding. It felt like a lot of work for fairly little reward. Because the resources that you get, for sure, is very intuitive. Humans or batteries, doesn't feel like they matter all that much. I don't feel like they're worth the work. I almost feel like, I don't know, when I play zombie dice, I roll those dice and I get some brains and I get some footprints. Here I almost feel like I'm taking more steps to get to 4 humans instead of 3, and 5 food instead of 3, which in the long run may matter, but round after round you feel like you're doing something very, very similar. Even those effects, in the standard game especially, since they feel like consolation prize, ultimately feels like, well, I was able to guess that you would give me a food, so I made a synergy, so I get 6 food. Or if I guess wrong, now I get 4 instead because I activate the battery. And I think, again, there's a certain self-feeding mechanism, so that alien cards will give you more aliens, food will give you more food. So if at the end, for example, you're missing a resource, it's very hard to get it, because I'm missing aliens, and I need aliens to make aliens, and I need batteries to get more batteries. Although in the late game that doesn't really matter all that much, because probably most of your machines will be powered up. So again, that feels like a bit irrelevant. You would expect the last phases of the game to be more exciting with more effects, but ultimately it almost reduced. It's almost like an engine leveraging, because at the beginning, well, getting matches is really important. I'm matching those two cards. Later, you had the machines that take care of that, and almost everybody has all the machines or many machines. So it feels like a lot of work, and gameplay ultimately feels like the most important decision. The most important thing that you do is to guess which of the two cards the opponent is going to give you, or the two that you gave them, and then give one back. Well, I'm going to plan things so I can give you two cards of the same kind. So that becomes irrelevant and trivial. And ultimately, when you're making that decision, it feels like a 50% guess, which is not very exciting. And you guess, and you move cards around, and you get some more humans, some fewer food, some more food. Again, from time to time, there is a case where you get stuck, and then the game feels very punishing. Because I really need aliens, but a lot of Banes are coming out, and now I lose everything. Or I need food, and I don't get food. So it feels either trivial, but then when you make a mistake, it feels very punishing. So it's almost like there's not a lot of satisfaction for creating a great engine, but there is regret and annoyance when the engine, which is fairly, again, uninteresting when it works, is actually very annoying when it doesn't. To me, it should be the other way around. A lot of game design in the last decade or so has been the other way around. Create an amazing engine which is super fun to operate, and don't punish players for making a mistake, because we have loss aversion. Psychologists have proven that, and it's just not a pleasurable experience. So it's a new mechanic, but I don't think it's implemented in a way that is very fun and compelling in here. I felt that the game felt repetitive, a bit fiddly, a lot of just adjustments, bunch of tokens moving around. I'm moving 8 humans, and then I'm moving 10 back. I need to trade five meatballs with a token. The logistics also felt very fiddly. So it feels fiddly, the decisions are not super exciting, the outcomes are fairly interesting also, but when you make a mistake, it's painful. And that's my assessment of Precognition.